You remember the sociocultural aspect of writing. I've given a brief introduction to it in other videos. And so today we're going to zoom past the basics of social dynamics and the sociocultural, all the different things that could be culture. And we are going to talk, and we've already talked about authority. We want to zoom in today on how authority is embedded in power documents or power texts or key textual artifacts. So I'll give some basics and then I'll give some examples, and I'm really trying to keep this under 5 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So power texts are authoritative documents. They are documents that have been given special governing power over people. They are documented social contracts, and so they are places where authority gets shifted from a position or a person into a shared document that people have chosen to submit themselves under. And so we can see these in all the different parts of society. So if you remember Althusser's ideological apparatuses, we could use these various parts of society as a starting place and then say, okay, well, what governs these areas? What governs procedure? What governs behavior? That sort of thing in these areas. And so, a government's constitution, its laws at the federal, the state, or the city level. In an educational setting, it could be the class syllabus, a textbook, a student code of conduct, even the prompt for an assignment. If you're in business, an employee handbook or code of conduct. The community terms of use or service for an HOA or for an online environment like YouTube or a video game. Even in the home, we've got that family apparatus from Althusser. Even in the home, we might look at things like chore charts, meal or medicine schedules. Things like these can all be ways that we embed authority beyond the individual or beyond the person. And so as we think about that, this can be a really meaningful way to analyze a culture, because sometimes authority, maybe the power text, maybe they're not written down, but maybe they're spoken stories if it's an oral culture. But they can show up in a lot of different ways, and the unique way that a society governs itself through power documents, the unique way that a government or a society or a culture comes to an agreement on what they believe or what they'll allow can be really interesting. What usually happens in a lot of circumstances is that somebody starts with a document they think is sufficient, and then they have to keep adding laws as people find loopholes and find ways to break it, because that's what happens. The laws get added because of our failings as humans. And so it's something to be aware of. But let's just take a quick look at some possibilities here. So like I said, family chore charts. These are the things you're supposed to do, and when you get them done, you get a checkbox. That's one way. I remember having something even like this for training at McDonald's. We had little stars for managers or for lead crew members that it would be like, when you're trained in the grill, you get your star there. When you do the training, to be able to count down cash at the end of the night. When you get your training to actually be able to take the money to the bank, or however it is that a company does it, you would get your little stars to show that you have gained that authority in that area. So it can be really interesting. And so that we can find these power texts, these power documents that govern what we're supposed to do or what expectations we have of each other in a particular society. We may also look at businesses' employee manuals. We could go through and say, okay, what are the things that they start with? What are the things they care about? There are basic job requirements. I thought this was funny because it said you have to provide your own pants. Unacceptable pants include things like JNCOs and wide leg jeans. And so this is a document from, I think, 2014 was the copyright on it. I just found it there. All these are just examples that are easily Googleable, just to make the point. So we can look at, you got to have your uniform shirts, you got to have your hat, you have to have your name tag. If you don't have those things, you're not following code of conduct, and you could get fired or sent home or not be allowed to clock in until you have these things done. It's and what this power documents are actually really interesting governance documents, because they allow you to set things in motion that means somebody doesn't have to harp on it all the time. They can just say, hey, did you read that in the manual? Or give the manual and just say, these are the expectations, instead of having to keep bringing it up or feel like they have to discipline you all the time. It can be really interesting. And so it's a way to enact authority without rhetorically at the same time that you allow people to save face sometimes, because you can just say, hey, did you check this section in the handbook? You might take a look at that, instead of do this now. And it's like the only thing that makes the authority be present is a physical presence of a leader or a supervisor or whatever it is. It's kind of interesting. So continuing on with our examples, we have the League of Legends chat restrictions, and how will I know if I have chat restrictions enabled on my account? So they have, and will other people know? Did I fill out, when will the restrictions be over? They have things that restrict your use even on a game. A lot of times people think they should just be able to do what they want, but every environment, every culture you jump into has a way of protecting its members. Some are very low-key, and they're just like, don't be jerks, and we're cool. And then the second that you shift into jerk mode, they kick you out. And it's one of those things where it can be, because there's a lot of gray area, maybe it's overdone, or because there's a lot of gray area, maybe there's a lot of abuses by members until it gets to a point where enough people complain. But yeah, so video games, businesses, other things like the Ten Commandments. Some of these are even on memorials around the United States. If you notice, this one's written in Hebrew. I think this was a picture of the oldest archaeological discovery of clay tablets in Hebrew, so it's kind of cool. But these are considered power texts. They are supposed to have been given to Moses, carved out by the finger of God up in a cloud on a mountain. And so it's kind of, it is supposed to be authoritative. We have these different things that govern our behavior in society. Let's see, Reddits have content policies, privacy policies, all these other things. And so at the point that it talks, if we look closely, we can see what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what counts as healthy discussion, that kind of things. And the various rules. So we also have the Maricopa Student Code of Conduct. Every college has some student code of conduct that covers basic disciplinary codes, compliance with rules and regulations, not bringing weapons or alcoholic beverages onto campus. I have to remind people when I go to do my potluck at the end of the semester, maybe I don't have to, but I feel the need to, that it's things that are legal in the state and allowed on campus, because it's a thing. So, these things govern our behavior. And if we don't let them govern our behavior, there are consequences that some people can enact that we may not appreciate, or that we're willing to subject ourselves to. So there's obviously the Bill of Rights at a national level, state level, city level, county level. There are all these levels, right? So those are my examples. So again, just as a quick reminder, we're talking about power texts because it deals with authority. This is part of the socio-cultural aspect of writing. It's how is power enacted, how is behavior and communication governed within a culture, within a society. And there are all these different ways, and if we're analyzing a society, we can see power texts show up in all types, all parts or mechanisms of society. There are things that, even though we have free speech, there are things that govern what the press is allowed to do. Even though we have free speech, there are certain character defamation laws that apply if you're a private person, don't apply if you're a public figure. So we've created nuances even to the First Amendment rights and things like that. So these are all fun things connected to power text and the sociocultural aspect of writing. I hope this has been fun.